there are not more talks around migration and immigration and freedom and making sure that our Black and brown and indigenous brothers are safe. I get messages at least once a week from random runners saying, should I run with my passport? Should I run with my residency? Like, do you think this race is safe? And, there are places where I'm like, it's not really safe for you to run there right now by yourself. So I want to fight and make sure that people understand that it is a privilege.
Welcome to the Safe Space Running Podcast. We're here to encourage, enable, and empower. I'm so honored to have today's next guest, Carolina. Carolina, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
The pleasure is truly all mine. We ran into each other. We formally got to meet at TRE where you did a panel with Rising Hearts. But before I dig into that, I want to ask you, what do you have lined up for this year in terms of races, projects? Is there anything that you're working towards right now in your running and walking journey?
Yeah, so I am doing the Grand Trail Courmayeur, which is a 100K and about 23,000 feet of elevation. I really like running in very steep places.
Steep is an understatement. You already lost me at 100K, but then the elevation, oh my goodness. But that's got to be an experience in its own. How do you train for something of that nature?
Well, I live in New Jersey, which is very flat. So I have a treadmill that goes up to 40% elevation. I like a 40% degree incline. And so I train. I do a lot of strength training, and it worked. It's worked for me, and it's still working. So. But I love it. I love elevation.
Awesome. Well, you are going to be part of our series. And for those listening and watching, we're doing a series for March for Women's History Month. And we want to highlight women who are currently making impact and change in their respective communities and projects they're working in. And Carolina is the founder of Touching Lands. See, my words aren't wording today. It's still a little early, but Touching Lands is a nonprofit organization built around building courage, imagination, and social change for immigrants. So, Carolina, I wanted to ask you just a little bit about that program and what was the catalyst to create something of that nature? Because we'll dig more into it. But what was your reason, your spark for starting that?
So as an immigration lawyer, I noticed that, first of all, laws are specifically immigration laws are designed to fail, really. They're really hard for you to succeed as an asylum seeker, especially. It's practically impossible. There's no support system. And so I essentially have been working and building programs to support people and in a way for them to succeed as much as possible. But given Trump won his first presidency and the attack on immigrants, I wanted to make sure that folks understood their rights. And people really don't, when you're talking words, it's hard, you're stressed. So I wanted to come up with a system on something that was somatic, that was really sitting in people's bodies properly. Because you can know all the laws in the world. If you stand in front of a 6'5" dude that's strong and you don't know where to tap into your power and sit strong, you're not going to be able to push back, right? And so I designed these programs where people come in smaller groups and we talk about our rights, but in the context of tapping into our power. So we use clay, we use food, and now running as a form of not just coming together, but also allowing for vulnerability to show up and then finding our support system through community and ourselves. And, we build something that, right, we don't think we're going to be able to run a 5K or a 10K or a marathon or a half marathon. And this idea of really believing in yourself and working hard. And with same thing with the clay, you have something in your imagination and then it becomes true. And so with that sort of metaphor, it really translates into life where you can now see the possibility of imagining and pushing and then becoming what you wish and you imagine to be.
There's a quote on your website that really resonated to me, and it was back in 2016. You said you had your first Know Your Rights class, which was held back in 2016. I just said that, but one of your participants said the last time I touched land this way was when I crossed the border barefoot. Can you describe, what that felt like when they shared that to you?
I mean, I think it's the moments of vulnerability and of sharing, and the way that art and the way that running really opens up people is so unique and so beautiful. And I'm so honored to do this work. It's really hard right now. It is the hardest it's been ever, I think.
Mm,
And, working in detention centers with people separated and babies that hadn't seen their moms in 3 months was really like so heartbreaking. But then there are those moments of sort of magic where people feel seen, people feel heard, people feel like they're not alone. And so, it's those moments of magic that kind of balance the awfulness.
mm,
And I find immense inspiration, like we're doing these races with water and Gatorade and support and guidance. And like these, my immigrants are crossing borders for 4 months with no
wow.
idea where they're going to land, no idea the language, no idea of where they're going to sleep, how. They have to cross the Darien jungle, which has really incredibly scary species that are deadly, all sorts
Hmm.
of snakes, and they have to cross with their kids, and it's, I think they are the most inspiring and brave people that I've ever met. And so it's an honor to, make sure that folks know more of these incredible stories. And that's why we
Hmm.
created the program, so that allies can join as well, and they can learn about each other and see each other's humanity as much as possible.
Humanity is that portion right there. I think that kind of signifies all of that because again, we met at TRA. You were doing the panel at for Rising Hearts, and you said something that really touched that aspect of, you made it tangible, the feeling of what immigrants are going through right now, especially when it comes to running. I just that year I did Chicago, and that whole weekend ICE was down there, and seeing people asking questions. I remember my Uber driver asking, "Hey, what are all these black vans here for? This is odd." He knew the marathon. He was like, "There's a lot of things going on," and you pointedly pointed out that people are scared and afraid to participate in these kind of things because you don't know what's going to happen, and it made it viscerally real that it's a luxury that a lot of us sometimes takes for granted, and understanding that we have to meet each other where they are and understand their story and their background. And when you said that, it really just, I was always aware of it, but it just made it a little bit more tangible, if that makes any sense, of what you're fighting for and what immigrants are fighting for, just for that same level of humanity. Regardless of what's going on, we all are human. We all deserve the same space and platform to just exist.
100%. And I think it's so important, for me personally, running is my way of feeling freedom in my body and my mind. And it's sort of my mental health and my tool to be as productive and helpful in the world. And if that is taken away from me, it's going to be really hard. And so I want to fight and make sure that people understand that it is a privilege, and we have to demand from our running clubs to have emergency plans and to have systems in place. And I've been asking race directors to come up with systems of support,
Hmm.
because you don't want to lose. It feels like we're losing so much of the diversity, of the equity, of the work, of the inclusivity. Like those programs disappeared. Nobody really intentionally cared about
Mm,
these things. And so it feels like, you know, it doesn't even feel like it's relevant in the running world. Like I'm kind of shocked at the fact that there are not more talks around migration and immigration and freedom and making sure that our black and brown and indigenous brothers are safe. And it's disappointing. And so that's why we have to keep talking about it and keep making sure that it's front and center. Because I get messages at least once a week from random runners
mm,
saying, should I run with my passport? Should I run with my residency? Like, do you think this race is safe? And There are places where I'm like, it's not really safe for you to run there right now by yourself. Like, you should have someone to run with and make sure that you have a plan. And it's scary, but we have to push people to do more and to really show up.
I totally agree with that. It's a sad state of affairs when people have to fear for running. And I talk to people all the time, especially the ones that I help coach. Is one mantra that I live by: we are people who run. We often identify ourselves as runners and walkers, but we are people who so happen to run. And there's history, there's context, there's struggles, there's victories that we all face. And running is one of our outlets. The running is a lot of times we make that as our identity. It's not who we are. It doesn't make up the core of who we are. And I love that you are really helping to make sure people are seen and provide guidance in that, which goes into my next question for you. There's a lot of different run clubs that I personally work with, and that probably listen and watch the podcast as well. What are some actions that they can take to ensure that inclusivity, for one, and second, prepare them for those kind of questions? Say if they want to come to the run club and they're fearful or whatnot, or how can we best equip those of or immigrants who wants to join and participate, because they deserve to participate. There shouldn't. It's not even a question if they should and shouldn't. They should be willing to be able to come in and feel safe. How can our run clubs, our run leaders, and even our the person right next to us can ensure that they feel inclusive and safe and equip them with that knowledge?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's many ways. I mean, I think
Hmm.
first of all, you should make sure you put out a statement that, bigotry and all else is not allowed. I think some ways you can also do it is if there's fees, those can be waived for folks that, are immigrants. I think that making sure that, I'm working with some race directors to build systems like if folks don't feel safe, they can just get their money back. There's a buddy system as well. I think building a buddy system is really wonderful where you say, you know what, who's not feeling safe? We have a buddy system. We can pair you with someone that runs or walks at your same pace. We want you out here. We value you. We care for you. How can we support you? I think it's important to communicate with other run clubs that are maybe more immigrant heavy and show your support by being an ally and saying, well, today we're going to do a run with you guys. And we want to make sure that you feel like we care and that we see you and we understand it's a hard moment. I think that if you have folks that have not shown up recently,
Hmm.
there's a reason, especially if they're black or brown or immigrants. And so
Hmm.
making sure that you keep, keep a hand there and make sure that you understand that, they might need somewhere to talk. I mean, I know that my running friends are indispensable during this time. I've definitely become more quiet. And so isolation is one of the ways, right? We sort of can't deal. And so talking and making sure that we're communicating is important. I think sometimes running for causes, like we're doing a campaign called Con Amor Always, which is a card making campaign. Um, we're sending letters to Daly, Texas, to the family detention centers.
Hmm.
And we're doing different campaigns. We're going to talk about deported veterans. We're going to talk about farm workers and make cards. It's a program for educational purposes, but we've had run clubs in Oregon, in North Carolina, in Texas, in New Jersey, making cards. So go out for a run, come back, support a local taqueria or coffee place, and making some cards, and then they just ship them to our location. And we're making sure that they get to, vulnerable community.
That's I like that. I like that. I think we'll be in touch in that regardless,
Yeah.
because we would love to. I think the more visibility, the more people we get to involve. I think it's boots on the ground. I'm always a big fan of that, and I think now's no better time to really get involved and help our peers and our fellow humans in this current time. And you touched on something else that really resonates is, we build a lot of friendships and, companionships in running in these different communities and groups. And the follow-up notion is something that, should be very important, especially for those we know who are at risk, who know that they're having issues with, the system and administration and how ICE thing. We should be checking on those for their mental state and ensuring that they have, as pun not intended, a safe space. That's the heart of it, really. So, my last question to you would be, and it kind of overlaps with that, but this will be more so very high level. And I like this question.
Mhm.
You have a brand new runner or walker who's coming to you, and they've never experienced it before. They don't know how to start. What would be one thing you would suggest to them as they start this journey?
To not give up at the beginning. I think it's really hard, especially with the new folks that we get at our running
Yeah.
club. You know, we had some folks in their 60s and some women that had just given birth, and they were just like, oh, it hurts here, it hurts there. And I made sure to change them. Like when they got a little unmotivated, we put
Mm-hmm.
music on. You know, we had some questions. We have some questions ready to ask. Um, but just don't give up and keep trying. And it's going to be uncomfortable because growing is uncomfortable. You know, like vulnerability is uncomfortable. Like if courage was easy, everybody would do it. You know, and but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. Everybody would do the hard things, and it takes. I want to wake up this morning for my 6 a.m. run? No, I
No.
went to bed really late, and I was tired, and it's bitter cold outside. But I'm so glad that I did. I never regret a run. You know, I think that that's something that is so important to remember, especially if I have people. Accountability is so important.
Mm-hmm.
That's so much of what keeps, I think, us running and showing up, because we have other people that are needing to show up,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think, yeah, I think it would be don't give up and keep trying and lean on to others. I think that the camaraderie is so essential to running.
You picked something so perfectly melded with, the core of our conversation here of not giving up. And I would, before I go to that direction, I want to, of course, thank you for what you do, what you're doing for the community, what you've done for immigration and for immigrants out here. And I would say the same thing for you: is we need people more out here like you, and that I hope that you never give up, because I hope we all, as a collective, including, as I told you at TRE, you got to ally me. We
Yeah.
locked in. What I mean, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I say that to say that the work that you're doing and the inclusivity that you're trying to provide in a very tough time. You mentioned it earlier, like isolation. You could be in a position where it seems futile or whatnot. But I appreciate that you haven't given up on those who are being seen in such a negative light, and you haven't given up on them. And I encourage those who are listening and watching that we don't give up on them as well. They come to our run clubs, they come to different running events, they come to walking events, and if we see them, it's good to acknowledge that there's a struggle that they're going through. Our immigrants are going through a current scary time, and we have to, if we say running is for everyone, if we say walking is for everyone, we have to really put that to fruition. And I'm proud to know you and know that you are a prime example of how to do it correctly, how to do it in love, and how to just do it just from the sanctity, or from just the place of, you deserve to be seen, you deserve to have the same space shared with me. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you truly for all that you do. I admire you and I am inspired by you. And please continue what you do. We'll be working together on other projects, as I hinted at before. But
Yeah.
before I go there, thank you so much, and I appreciate you for not giving up on those.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris, for doing this and for highlighting us and for creating a space that feels safe and accessible, and just so honored. And yeah, I mean, I think it's an honor, like I said, for me to do this work. I'll never give up on my people, no matter how hard it is.
And that's what we need. We need just not you. We need all of us in here together for this. So,
Yes.
as mentioned, thank you so much for those again listening and watching. Touching Lands, they have different programs. Please, if you can, donate, collaborate with Carolina, and just let's continue to keep this momentum going. And since that, we make sure everyone is seen. And again, I can't thank you enough. I'm honored to have you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. Have a beautiful day.
You too.